I stood at the edge of the banquet hall, watching my father hold court like he always did. 65 years old, retiring from a career he never shut up about, surrounded by people who actually believed he was some kind of hero. The crystal chandeliers threw golden light across his smug face as he laughed with his colleagues, probably telling another exaggerated story about closing some deal or saving some project. My mother sat beside him, wearing that frozen smile she'd perfected over 30 years of marriage. My brother Marcus stood behind them like a loyal guard dog, his hand on Dad's shoulder, soaking up reflected glory like he always had. I was there because Mom begged me to come. 3 voicemails, 2 text messages, and 1 tearful phone call about how it would destroy the family if I didn't show up to Dad's retirement dinner. So here I was, in a dress I bought specifically because Dad would hate it, holding a glass of wine I desperately wanted to throw in his face. The trouble started the moment I walked through the door an hour earlier. Dad saw me, and his expression shifted from jovial to disgusted in half a second. No hug. No greeting. Just that look he'd been giving me since I was 16 and told him I wanted to study environmental science instead of business. "You actually came," he said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "Shocked you could tear yourself away from whatever hippie protest you're probably organizing." I smiled tight. "Wouldn't miss celebrating your retirement, Dad. It's not every day someone finally admits they're done." His jaw clenched, but Mom rushed over, pulling me into a hug that felt more like a hostage negotiation. "Please," she whispered in my ear. "Just tonight. Please don't make this difficult." I promised nothing, but I walked to my assigned seat at the family table. Marcus was already there with his wife Jennifer, who gave me a sympathetic smile that didn't reach her eyes. My older sister Rachel sat across from me, looking expensive and uncomfortable in equal measure. She'd flown in from Seattle with her husband David, and from the tension in her shoulders, I could tell she didn't want to be here either. The evening proceeded exactly as I expected. Dad's former colleagues gave speeches praising his leadership, his vision, his dedication. Each word felt like a knife, because I knew the truth about what he'd sacrificed to build that career. Us, his family. Every soccer game he missed, every school play he couldn't attend, every birthday he forgot. But nobody mentioned that. Nobody talked about the man who told his daughter her PhD was worthless, or who refused to attend her university graduation because it conflicted with a golf tournament. Then came dinner. Prime rib, roasted vegetables, expensive wine. Dad was at the head of the table, naturally, pontificating about his accomplishments, while everyone nodded along. I pushed food around my plate, counting the minutes until I could leave. That's when Marcus decided to stir things up. He raised his glass, getting everyone's attention. "I want to make a toast," he announced. "To Dad, obviously, but also to family. To the legacy he's built, not just in business, but in raising us to follow in his footsteps." I nearly choked on my wine. Rachel's eyes widened slightly, a warning. Marcus continued, his voice dripping with that particular smugness that made me want to scream. "Some of us understood what Dad was teaching us. Some of us took his lessons about success and hard work and turned them into real careers. Real accomplishments." His eyes flicked to me for just a moment. "And some of us decided to waste our potential on pointless degrees and activist nonsense that doesn't contribute anything to society." The table went silent. Mom's face drained of color. Dad was watching me with this anticipatory expression, like he was waiting to see if I'd finally break. I set down my wine glass very carefully. "That's interesting, Marcus. Tell me, what exactly have you accomplished?" "Besides riding Dad's coattails into a middle management position at his company, I built my career," Marcus shot back. "I didn't need handouts or participation trophies. I earned everything I have." "You earned a job from nepotism," I said. "There's a difference." "At least I have a real job," he sneered. "What do you do again? Hug trees? Complain about climate change on the internet? Study plants that nobody cares about?" Dad laughed. actually laughed. She's got 3 degrees and works for some nonprofit that probably pays poverty wages. All that education, all that time, and for what? So she can feel morally superior while contributing nothing of value. The words hit me like physical blows, but I'd been preparing for this my entire life. I'd been the disappointment, the black sheep, the daughter who refused to fit into his narrow definition of success. I'd heard every variation of these insults since I chose my own path. But tonight was different. Tonight, I had something he didn't know about. Contributing nothing of value, I repeated slowly. That's your assessment of my work? What else would you call it? Dad said. You could have done something important. Law school, medical school, even teaching would have been better than whatever it is you're doing. But no, you had to be difficult. You had to waste your intelligence on environmental activism and research nobody reads. Research nobody reads, I echoed. My heart was pounding, but my voice stayed steady. Is that right? Sweetheart, Mom said weakly. Maybe we should talk about something else. No, I said firmly. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about value and contribution and success. Since Dad's been so vocal about my failures all evening, I think it's only fair we examine what he considers success. Rachel was staring at me with wide eyes, shaking her head slightly. She knew something was coming, even if she didn't know what. There's nothing to examine, Dad said dismissively. I built a career over 40 years. I provided for this family. I created opportunities for my children, even the ones who threw those opportunities away. That's measurable success. That's real accomplishment. And my work? I pressed. My research on coastal ecosystem restoration and climate resilience? The paper I published last year on innovative approaches to erosion control and wetland preservation? The methodology I developed that's being implemented in 6 states? That's nothing. It's niche, Dad said with a wave of his hand. Academic nonsense that maybe 12 people in the world care about. It's not real-world impact. Real-world impact, I repeated. I reached into my purse, my hands shaking slightly. That's interesting. Because I received something in the mail last week that suggests some people disagree with your assessment. I pulled out the envelope. Heavy cream-colored paper, official seal embossed on the front. I set it on the table in front of me. What is that? Marcus asked suspiciously. This, I said, is an invitation. A notification, actually. I wasn't going to mention it tonight. I was going to let Dad have his moment, let him retire in peace, even after everything he's said about my choices over the years. But since we're apparently discussing the value of contributions tonight, I think it's relevant. Dad's eyes narrowed. What kind of notification? I opened the envelope slowly, deliberately. The letter inside was crisp, official, undeniable. I read the first line aloud. Dear Dr. Sarah Mitchell, it is our honor to inform you that you have been selected as the recipient of the Presidential Award for Excellence in Environmental Science and Innovation. The silence that fell over the table was deafening. I continued reading. Your groundbreaking research on coastal restoration and climate adaptation has demonstrated exceptional merit and real-world application. Your innovative methodologies have been implemented across multiple states, protecting vulnerable coastlines and communities from the increasing impacts of climate change. The ceremony will be held in Washington, D.C., where you will be formally recognized by the President of the United States. I looked up. Dad's face had gone pale. Marcus's mouth was hanging open. Mom had tears streaming down her face. Rachel was staring at me with something like awe. There's more, I said quietly. The award comes with a $500,000 grant to continue my research. It also includes an appointment to the National Environmental Advisory Council. Oh, and apparently I'm being featured in a documentary about scientists addressing the climate crisis. Production starts next month. I folded the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. But you're right, Dad. Nobody reads my research. It's completely worthless. Just like the awards ceremony next month will be completely worthless. Just like the communities whose shorelines have been protected by my work would agree it's all worthless. Just like the policy changes influenced by my research are completely meaningless. Dad opened his mouth, but nothing came out. For the first time in my entire life, my father had no words. Marcus tried to recover. Well, that's great, I guess. Congratulations. But it's still just environmental stuff. It's not like it's economics or business or something that actually affects the economy. I turned to him slowly. Not like it affects the economy. Marcus, my research has protected over $200 million in coastal property value. The erosion control methods I developed are saving municipalities millions in infrastructure costs. But sure, it doesn't affect the economy. You're absolutely right. Jennifer, Marcus's wife, was staring at her husband like she'd never seen him before. Marcus, she said quietly. She won a presidential award. Do you understand what that means? I built a career, Marcus stammered. I work hard, You work for Dad's company in a position you got because of your last name? I interrupted. I'm not saying you don't work hard, but let's not pretend your success is somehow more legitimate than mine just because it involves business instead of science. Rachel finally spoke up, her voice shaky. Sarah, I had no idea. Why didn't you tell anyone? I tried, I said, looking at Dad. I called 2 weeks ago to share the news. Dad said he was busy and would call me back. He never did. So I decided not to mention it. I figured one more achievement he didn't care about wouldn't matter. Mom was openly crying now. Sarah, sweetheart, we're so proud of you. I'm so sorry we didn't know. I'm so sorry. Are you, Mom? I asked gently. Are you really sorry? Because you've watched Dad diminish my work for years and never said a word. You've listened to him mock my choices, question my intelligence, imply I was wasting my life, and you stayed silent. That's not fair, Mom protested weakly. What's not fair, I said, my voice rising slightly, is being told your entire adult life that you're a failure when you're actually excelling in your field. What's not fair is having your family treat you like an embarrassment because your success doesn't look like their definition of success. What's not fair is coming to your father's retirement dinner and being publicly humiliated for your career choices when you're about to receive one of the highest honors in your field. I stood up, grabbing my purse. I'm leaving. Congratulations on your retirement, Dad. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you spend your days golfing and traveling and doing all the things you love. And maybe, if you have time between activities, you could ask yourself why you drove away a daughter who only ever wanted you to be proud of her. Sarah, wait, Dad said, finally finding his voice. I didn't know about the award. You didn't know because you didn't care enough to ask, I said. For years, I've tried to tell you about my work. Every conversation, you changed the subject or made a dismissive comment. Every achievement, you minimized. When I got my PhD, you didn't come to the graduation. When I got my first research grant, you said it was cute that I was playing scientist. When my paper was published in one of the top journals in my field, you asked when I was going to get a real job. I just wanted you to be practical, Dad said, and I could hear something in his voice that might have been regret. I wanted you to have security. No, I corrected him. You wanted me to have the kind of success you understood, the kind you could brag about to your colleagues. Business success. Corporate success. The kind Marcus has, where you can point to a title and a salary and say, that's my child. My success doesn't fit in that box, so you decided it wasn't real. I walked toward the door, but Rachel caught up with me in the hallway outside the banquet hall. Sarah, wait. Please. I turned to face my sister. She looked shaken, guilty, desperate. What, Rachel? I should have stood up for you, she said quietly. All those years, all those dinners where Dad went after you, I should have said something. I was a coward. I didn't want to become his target, so I let you take all the hits alone. Yeah, I agreed. You did. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. And I'm so proud of you. What you've accomplished, it's incredible. The presidential award, Sarah. That's huge. That's historic. And you did it all while dealing with Dad's constant criticism. You're stronger than any of us. I felt tears starting to form, but I blinked them back. I can't do this right now, Rachel. I need to leave before I completely break down. Will you call me? She asked. Please? Let me try to make this right. I nodded, not trusting my voice, and walked out of the hotel. The drive home was a blur. I made it to my apartment, locked the door, and finally let myself fall apart. Years of rejection, years of feeling inadequate, years of questioning whether I'd made the wrong choices, all came pouring out. I cried for the daughter who never felt good enough, for the dreams I'd pursued despite constant discouragement, for the relationship with my father that had slowly died over decades of disappointment. Around midnight, my phone started ringing. Dad's name on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. He called 3 more times. Then Marcus called. Then Mom. I turned off my phone and went to bed. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and a dozen text messages. Most were from Mom, begging me to talk to Dad, saying he was devastated, that he wanted to apologize. Marcus sent a terse message saying I'd embarrass the family. Rachel sent several saying she loved me and supported me. I ignored all of them and went to work. I had research to do, data to analyze, a project proposal to finish. My real life, the one my family didn't respect or understand. 3 days later, I got a package delivered to my office. Inside was a framed photo from my PhD graduation, the one Dad hadn't attended. He must have gotten it from Mom or found it somewhere. There was a note in his handwriting. I should have been there. I'm sorry. Dad. I stared at it for a long time, feeling a complicated mix of emotions. Too little, too late? Or a genuine attempt at reconciliation? I didn't know. 2 weeks later, Mom called while I was at lunch. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Sarah, she said immediately. Please don't hang up. Your father wants to talk to you. He's been miserable since the dinner. He knows he was wrong. Then he can tell me himself, I said. He's afraid you won't take his call, Mom admitted. He's afraid he's destroyed any chance of having a relationship with you. He spent my entire adult life destroying our relationship, I said flatly. One apology note doesn't fix that. I know, Mom said, and she sounded genuinely broken. I know, sweetheart. But he's trying. He's really trying. He's been reading your research papers. He printed out the announcement about your award and carries it in his wallet. He tells everyone he meets about it now. The man at the grocery store, his golf buddies, the neighbors. He's proud of you, Sarah. He just didn't know how to show it before. That's not good enough, I said, but my voice cracked. He doesn't get to be proud now that I've received external validation. He should have been proud when I graduated high school at the top of my class. When I got into my dream university. When I earned my PhD. When I got my first job. He should have been proud of the work, not just the award. You're right, Mom agreed. You're absolutely right. But Sarah, he's an old man who just realized he spent decades alienating his daughter over his own narrow-minded definition of success. He can't undo those years. All he can do is try to do better now. And he wants to try if you'll let him. I was crying again. I seem to do a lot of that lately. I don't know if I can, Mom. It hurts too much. I understand, she said softly. Take whatever time you need. Just know that we love you. I love you. And your father loves you, even though he's been terrible at showing it. We'll be here when you're ready. I couldn't respond. I ended the call and sat in my car in the parking lot, trying to process everything. The award ceremony was scheduled for a month later. I received the formal invitation with details about the event, the reception, the protocol. It was a huge honor, genuinely life-changing for my career and my research. But part of me kept thinking about my father, about that photo frame, about the idea of him carrying my award announcement in his wallet. I thought about not inviting my family, just going alone or bringing colleagues, making it purely professional. But Rachel's words kept echoing in my head. She'd admitted her cowardice. acknowledged her failure to support me. That took courage. Maybe she deserved a chance. 2 weeks before the ceremony, I sent an email to my family with the details. Short and formal. If you would like to attend, these are the arrangements. Let me know by Friday so I can add you to the guest list. Rachel responded within an hour. I'll be there. Thank you for giving me this chance. Love you. Mom responded that evening. We would be honored to attend. Thank you, sweetheart. Love, Mom. Marcus didn't respond at all. No surprise there. Dad sent a message the next morning. Just 5 words. Please let me come. Dad. I stared at those 5 words for a long time. Please. The man who had spent my entire life telling me what I should do, who I should be, what mattered and what didn't, was saying please. Asking permission. Acknowledging, in his way, that he lost the right to assume he was welcome in my life. I wrote back. You can come. But we need to talk before the ceremony. Really talk. His response came immediately. Anything you want. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. The conversation happened 3 days before I left for Washington, D.C. Dad came to my apartment, looking smaller somehow than I remembered. Older. Uncertain in a way I'd never seen him before. We sat in my living room, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. I've spent the last month reading everything you've published. All your research papers, your articles, the policy recommendations. I don't understand all of it, the technical parts, but Sarah, what you've done is extraordinary. The scope of it, the impact, it's profound. And I completely missed it. Yeah, I said quietly. You did. I was so locked into my own definition of success that I couldn't see yours, he continued. I wanted you to have what I had, a corporate career, financial security, the things I understood. When you chose differently, I took it as rejection. Like you were saying my life wasn't good enough, my values were wrong. So I lashed out. I criticized. I diminished what you were doing because it scared me that I didn't understand it. That's not a good excuse, I said. It's not an excuse at all, Dad agreed. It's an explanation, but not a justification. There is no justification for how I treated you. You're my daughter. I should have supported your dreams, celebrated your achievements, been proud of the person you became. Instead, I tried to make you feel small for being extraordinary in a way I didn't expect. I was crying again. I seemed incapable of having serious conversations without crying anymore. Do you know what it's like, I asked, my voice shaking, to accomplish something amazing and immediately think about how your father will belittle it? To get exciting news and feel dread instead of joy because you know he'll find a way to make it seem meaningless? I've spent years achieving things and feeling empty because the person whose approval I wanted most was determined never to give it. Dad's eyes were wet too. I can't take that back. I can't give you the support you needed when you needed it. All I can do is promise that from now on, I will be the father you deserved all along. If you'll let me try. We talked for hours. He asked questions about my research, actually listened to the answers. He asked about my life, my friends, my plans for the future. He told me about his regrets, about the moments he wished he could redo. It wasn't perfect. Decades of damage don't heal in one conversation. But it was a start. The awards ceremony was surreal. Standing in that room in Washington, D.C., surrounded by accomplished scientists and policymakers, hearing my work described in glowing terms by people I'd only read about, receiving the award from the president himself. It felt like vindication for every doubt I'd ever had, every moment I'd questioned my choices. But the moment that mattered most was looking out into the audience and seeing my family. Mom crying proud tears. Rachel beaming. And Dad, my father who had spent so many years refusing to see me, standing and applauding like I'd hung the moon. After the ceremony, at the reception, Dad approached me carefully. Can I introduce you to someone? He asked. I nodded, and he led me to a distinguished-looking couple near the windows. This is my daughter, Dr. Sarah Mitchell, he said, and his voice was filled with unmistakable pride. She just received the Presidential Award for her work on coastal ecosystem restoration. She's literally saving communities and coastlines with her research. I'm the luckiest father in the world. The couple congratulated me warmly, and we chatted about my work for a few minutes before they moved on. Dad stayed beside me, his hand on my shoulder. I'm going to do that at every opportunity from now on, he said quietly. Tell anyone who'll listen about your accomplishments. Brag about my brilliant daughter who's changing the world. Make up for lost time, even though I know I can never fully compensate for the years I wasted. It's going to take time, I told him honestly, for me to fully trust this, to believe it's real and lasting. I know, he said. I'll wait, however long it takes. We stood there together, looking out over the reception, and for the first time in years, I felt like maybe my father and I might actually find our way back to each other. 6 months have passed since that night. Dad calls me every week now, always asking about my research, my projects, my life. He's learned the names of my colleagues, remembers details about my work, asks intelligent questions. Last month, he attended a lecture I gave at a local university, sat in the front row, and asked a question during the Q&A that actually made me proud. He's trying. Mom and I are rebuilding our relationship too. She started standing up to him when he slips into old patterns, calling him out when he's dismissive or judgmental. It's like watching her rediscover her own voice after years of silence. Rachel and I are closer than we've ever been. She flew across the country twice to visit me, and we're planning a sister's trip next spring. She's apologized dozens of times for her past silence, and I've forgiven her. Family is complicated, but we're figuring it out. Marcus and I haven't spoken since that dinner. He sent a brief congratulations email after the awards ceremony, but that was it. Maybe someday we'll reconcile, but I'm not holding my breath. Some relationships aren't meant to be fixed. My research continues to expand. The grant from the Presidential Award has allowed me to hire a team, launch new projects, collaborate with scientists around the world. My work is being implemented in 12 states now, protecting coastlines, preserving ecosystems, helping communities adapt to climate change. Every day, I see the real-world impact of what I do, and I know I made the right choice following this path, despite the years of discouragement. Sometimes I think about that retirement dinner, about Marcus's toast and Dad's cruel words. About how close I came to leaving without saying anything, just swallowing the hurt like I always had. Pulling out that award notification was terrifying. It felt like putting my heart on the table and daring them to crush it one more time. But I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I forced them to see me, really see me, for the first time in years. Not the disappointment they'd constructed in their minds, but the accomplished scientist I'd actually become. My work matters. My choices were valid. My success is real, even if it doesn't fit into a traditional corporate box. And I don't need my father's validation to know that anymore. But having it, finally having him look at me with pride instead of disappointment, means more than I ever wanted to admit. The journey isn't over. Healing family wounds takes years, maybe decades. There will be setbacks and difficult conversations and moments when old patterns resurface. But we're trying, and that's more than I had 6 months ago. I'm Dr. Sarah Mitchell, Presidential Award recipient, environmental scientist, daughter, sister, fighter for the things I believe in. And I'm finally proud of all of those identities, with or without anyone else's approval. That retirement dinner taught me something important. Sometimes you have to force people to see the truth. Sometimes you have to put your achievements on the table and refuse to let others diminish them. Sometimes you have to stand up for yourself even when it's terrifying, even when it might destroy relationships you've been clinging to despite the pain. And sometimes, if you're lucky, forcing that confrontation opens the door to real change, real healing, real relationships built on truth instead of pretense. Was it worth it? Every difficult moment, every tear, every confrontation? Absolutely. Because I finally have what I always wanted. Not just my father's pride, but my own. Not just external validation, but internal certainty that I made the right choices, lived my authentic life, achieved meaningful things. The little girl who wanted her father's approval grew into a woman who didn't need it anymore. But receiving it anyway, earned through truth and confrontation rather than given freely, somehow means even more. My story didn't end at that retirement dinner. It began there. Began with me refusing to stay silent, claiming my achievements, demanding to be seen. And that beginning has led to a future I'm genuinely excited about. A future where I'm valued for who I actually am, not who someone thought I should be. So to anyone reading this who's ever felt diminished by their family, who's chosen an unconventional path and faced criticism, who's achieved greatness in ways others don't understand, keep going. Your worth isn't determined by whether people recognize it. But someday, when you force them to see the truth, when you lay your accomplishments on the table and refuse to let anyone diminish them, you might find that confrontation changes everything. Or you might find that it doesn't change them at all, but it changes you. Makes you stronger, more certain, more proud, and sometimes that's even better. Either way, you win. Because living authentically, achieving meaningful things despite opposition, becoming who you're meant to be regardless of approval, that's the real victory. Everything else is just details.